Baby noticed a German shepherd sleeping on a pair of old shoes. What Baby did next left everyone in tears. What you're about to listen to will break your heart and then piece it back together. A small child's innocent act of kindness changed lives forever and revealed a truth about loyalty that left an entire town speechless. If you think you know where this story is heading, trust me, you don't. The rain fell in sheets that Thursday afternoon, turning the small town of Millfield into a glistening maze of puddles and fog. 5-year-old Noah trudged alongside his grandfather, his yellow rain boots splashing through the water that reflected the gray sky above. Most children would be miserable in such weather, but Noah's eyes danced with excitement as he jumped from puddle to puddle, his laughter cutting through the steady drumming of rain. "Careful there, buddy," his grandfather Walter called out, his weathered hand holding a worn umbrella over them both. "Your mama's gonna have my head if you come home soaked through again." Noah giggled, his rosy cheeks bunching up beneath eyes that sparkled despite the gloom. "But the puddles are calling me, Grandpa." He demonstrated a particularly impressive splash that sent water arcing into the air. Walter smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. At 72, he wasn't as spry as he once was, but taking care of Noah since his daughter's passing last year had given him a new purpose. They made an odd pair, the silver-haired man with arthritic hands and the energetic kindergartner with untied shoelaces, but they understood each other in ways that transcended words. They were cutting through Jefferson Park, on their way home from Noah's preschool when it happened, the moment that would change everything. Noah stopped so suddenly that Walter nearly tripped over him. The boy's body went rigid, his gaze fixed on something beneath a park bench about 20 feet away. "Noah, what's wrong, bud?" Walter asked, concern etching deeper lines into his face. Noah didn't answer. Instead, he took 3 cautious steps forward, then turned to his grandfather with wide eyes. "Grandpa," he whispered, pointing, "look." Walter squinted through the rain. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just an old bench, weathered and worn, partially sheltered by an ancient oak tree. But then he noticed what had captured Noah's attention. A large shape huddled beneath it, barely visible in the shadows. "It's a doggie," Noah whispered. "And look, she's sleeping on shoes." Walter's eyes adjusted, and indeed, there was a large dog, some kind of shepherd by the looks of it, curled into a tight ball beside what appeared to be a pair of old boots. The animal was motionless except for the slight rise and fall of its rib cage. "She's waiting for someone," Noah continued, his voice rising with conviction. "Look at how she's guarding those shoes. They belong to her person." Walter hesitated, his mind racing through the possibilities. The dog could be dangerous, sick, or aggressive. They should walk away and perhaps call animal control once they reached home. "Noah, let's keep moving. That dog might not be friendly." But Noah was already pulling away from his grandfather's grip, his rain-splattered face set with a determination far beyond his years. "She needs help, Grandpa. She looks hungry." "Noah, wait!" Walter reached for him, but his grandson was already approaching the bench with slow, deliberate steps. Walter's heart hammered in his chest. Every protective instinct screamed at him to grab Noah and run, but something about the boy's certainty gave him pause. Noah had always shown an uncanny sensitivity toward animals, a trait he'd inherited from his mother. Noah stopped a few feet from the bench and crouched down, making himself even smaller. "Hi, doggy," he said softly. "Are you okay?" The dog's ears twitched slightly, and its eyes, amber-colored and clouded with exhaustion, opened to thin slits. Walter held his breath, ready to lunge forward if the animal showed any sign of aggression. But the dog merely watched them, too weak to even lift its head. Up close, Walter could see how emaciated it was, ribs protruding through matted, dirty fur, patches missing in places. The animal was in terrible shape. "Grandpa, she's so skinny," Noah whispered, his voice breaking. "And she's shaking." Walter approached cautiously, kneeling beside his grandson despite the protest of his aging knees. The dog was indeed trembling, whether from cold, fear, or illness, he couldn't tell. The boots beside her were work boots, heavy-duty, steel-toed ones with frayed laces and worn soles. They had been placed with obvious care, positioned neatly side by side. "Why would someone leave their shoes?" Noah asked, looking up at his grandfather with questioning eyes. Walter didn't have an answer that wouldn't frighten the boy. Instead, he gently placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Maybe they had to go somewhere in a hurry, and we'll come back for them." Noah shook his head with the certainty only children possess. "No, They're not coming back. That's why she's so sad. The dog's eyes followed their movements, but it made no attempt to stand or back away. When Noah slowly extended his small hand, palm up, the animal's nostrils flared slightly, taking in his scent. "Be careful," Walter warned, but he could already see the dog posed no threat. It was too weak, too broken. After a moment's hesitation, the dog extended its neck just enough to sniff Noah's fingertips. The boy beamed with delight. "See, Grandpa, she's nice. She's just scared and hungry." Noah turned his pleading eyes to Walter, and the old man knew what was coming before the words even left his grandson's mouth. "Can we help her? Please?" Walter sighed, looking from the boy to the dog and back again. The rain was falling harder now, and thunder rumbled in the distance. They couldn't leave the animal here, not in this condition. But taking in a stray, especially one this large and potentially sick, was a serious commitment. "Noah, this isn't like bringing home a lost toy. This is a living creature that needs medical attention, food, shelter." "We have all those things," Noah interrupted, his voice rising with determination. "And she has nobody, Grandpa. Nobody except those shoes, and they can't feed her." Walter looked at the dog again. Despite its size and breed, German Shepherd, he was almost certain, there was something gentle in its eyes, something resigned, as if it had accepted whatever fate awaited it. "Please," Noah whispered, "Mom would have helped her." And there it was, the one argument Walter had no defense against. His daughter, Sarah, had always been the first to help any creature in need. It was what had made her such an excellent veterinary technician before the cancer took her. It was what had made her such a loving mother to Noah. "All right," Walter conceded, already wondering how they had managed to transport a dog this size. "But if she shows any sign of aggression, or if she's too sick for us to help, we'll need to call professionals. Understood?" Noah nodded solemnly, his face splitting into a wide grin that reminded Walter so much of Sarah it made his chest ache. "She'll be good. I promise." Walter removed his rain jacket, ignoring the immediate chill that seeped through his sweater. He carefully draped it over the dog, who watched him with wary but unthreatening eyes. "What about her shoes?" Noah asked, pointing to the boots. "We'll take those too," Walter decided. Something told him they were important to the dog, bizarre as that seemed. The closest thing they had to a stretcher was the garden wheelbarrow in the park's maintenance shed. Walter knew the old groundskeeper, Frank, and managed to borrow it with a quick explanation. Together, he and Noah gently coaxed the dog onto the makeshift transport, placing the work boots beside her. "What should we name her?" Noah asked, as they began the awkward journey home, Walter pushing the wheelbarrow while trying to hold the umbrella over all three of them. Walter studied the dog, noting the small patch of white fur on her chest, shaped roughly like a flower. "How about Daisy?" Noah's eyes lit up. "Like the flowers Mom used to grow in the backyard?" "Yes, she's Daisy." As they made their way through the park, neighbors and passers-by stared at the unusual procession. An elderly man pushing a wheelbarrow containing a large, emaciated German Shepherd, accompanied by an excited 5-year-old carrying a pair of muddy work boots. Mrs. Grayson from the bakery crossed the street to avoid them. The Henderson twins pointed and whispered behind their hands. Only Mr. Finch, the librarian, offered help, which Walter gratefully declined. They could manage. "People are staring," Noah observed, unbothered by the attention. "People always stare at what they don't understand," Walter replied, panting slightly from the exertion. The wheelbarrow was heavier than expected, and his back was beginning to protest. "What don't they understand?" Noah asked, skipping alongside despite the serious nature of their mission. Walter thought for a moment. "They don't understand how sometimes the best things we do in life look strange to others." By the time they reached their modest 2-bedroom house at the end of Oak Street, Walter's arms were trembling from the strain, and Noah was uncharacteristically quiet. The weight of the boots and the responsibility they'd taken on tempering his usual exuberance. Getting Daisy inside was another challenge. Despite her weakened state, she was still a large dog, and Walter's strength wasn't what it used to be. Eventually, they created a makeshift sling from an old sheet and managed to carry her into the living room, where they prepared a comfortable spot using old blankets near the radiator. "She needs water," Walter said, heading to the kitchen while Noah stayed with Daisy, gently stroking her filthy fur, with no regard for the dirt transferring to his own clothes. When Walter returned with a bowl of water, he found Noah whispering to the dog, his face close to hers. "You're safe now," the boy was saying. Grandpa and I will take care of you until your person comes back. And if they don't come back, that's okay too. You can stay with us forever." Walter's throat tightened at the simple kindness in his grandson's words. He set the water bowl near Daisy's head, and she lapped at it weakly, drinking only a small amount before resting her head back on the blanket. "Should we give her food too?" Noah asked. Walter shook his head. "Not yet. When animals are this hungry, sometimes eating too quickly can make them sick. Let's let her get used to the water first, then try some bland food in a little while." He picked up the house phone to call the local veterinarian, Dr. Chen, but received only an automated message. The clinic was closed for the evening, with emergency services redirected to the animal hospital in the next town over, nearly an hour away. "Looks like Daisy is our responsibility until tomorrow morning," Walter told Noah, who had positioned himself on the floor next to the dog, his small hand resting protectively on her side. "That's okay. We can do it," Noah said with absolute confidence. "Can I sleep here with her tonight?" Walter started to object. The floor would be uncomfortable, and they still didn't know if the dog had any contagious illnesses, but the determination in Noah's eyes stopped him. "We'll see," he said instead. "First, let's get you cleaned up and fed, then we can check on Daisy again." While Noah reluctantly went to wash his hands, Walter examined the boots they'd brought home. They were size 11 Timberlands, well worn but obviously cared for despite their current muddy state. He turned them over, looking for any identifying marks or clues about their owner. Inside the right boot, barely visible in the dim light, was a name written in faded permanent marker: Michael S. Walter frowned, wondering about the man who had left these boots behind, and why his dog remained, faithfully guarding them against all odds. What kind of bond would inspire such loyalty? And what circumstances would force them apart? As he set the boots aside, he noticed Daisy watching him, her amber eyes following his every move. For a moment, something like recognition flickered in her gaze, as if she understood that he was handling something precious. "Don't worry, girl," Walter said softly. "We'll figure this out together." Later that evening, after a simple dinner of soup and sandwiches, Noah insisted on sleeping beside Daisy, despite Walter's concerns. They compromised with an inflatable mattress positioned next to the dog's makeshift bed. Noah lay there, one arm draped protectively over Daisy's back, while Walter read them both a bedtime story, an odd scene that somehow felt completely natural. "Grandpa," Noah whispered, as Walter tucked him in, "I think Daisy was sent to us." "Oh? And why's that?" Walter asked, smoothing the boy's unruly hair. "Because we know what it's like to miss someone," Noah replied simply. "Just like she misses her person." Walter swallowed hard, unprepared for the wisdom in those innocent words. "You might be right about that, buddy," he managed to say. "You just might be right." As he turned off the lights, leaving only the soft glow of a nightlight illuminating the room, Walter glanced back at the unlikely pair, a tiny boy and a broken dog, finding comfort in each other's presence. And for the first time in a long while, the empty house didn't feel quite so lonely. What Walter didn't know, what he couldn't have predicted, was that this rain-soaked Thursday marked only the beginning of their journey with Daisy, and that the mystery of the abandoned boots would lead them down a path far more dangerous and extraordinary than any of them could have imagined. The next morning arrived with gentle sunlight streaming through the living room windows, revealing the aftermath of their rescue mission. Noah woke first, his small body curled protectively around Daisy, who had barely moved during the night. Walter found them like that, boy and dog breathing in quiet harmony, the work boots standing sentinel nearby like forgotten guards. "Morning, sleepyheads," Walter whispered, not wanting to startle either of them. Noah's eyes fluttered open, immediately focusing on Daisy. "Is she okay, Grandpa? She feels so warm." Walter knelt beside them, gently placing his hand on the dog's forehead. She was indeed warm, too warm. Her breathing was shallow and rapid, and when he lifted her lip to check her gums, they were pale and dry. "We need to get her to a vet right away," Walter said, trying to keep the worry out of his voice. "Can you get dressed while I make some calls?" Noah scrambled to his feet, suddenly wide awake. "Is she going to die?" The question hit Walter like a punch to the chest. He'd promised himself he wouldn't let Noah experience another loss, not so soon after his mother. "No, buddy. We're going to take very good care of her, but she needs medicine that only a doctor can give her." While Noah hurried to get ready, Walter called every veterinary clinic within a 50-mile radius. Most were booked solid, but Dr. Amanda Rivera at Valley Animal Hospital agreed to see them as an emergency case if they could get there within the hour. The challenge was transportation. Their old Honda Civic wasn't built for carrying large dogs, especially sick ones. Walter ended up borrowing his neighbor Jim's pickup truck, promising to explain the whole story later. Getting Daisy into the truck required all of Walter's remaining strength and Noah's surprising determination. The dog was conscious but weak, her eyes unfocused and her movements sluggish. Noah insisted on riding in the back with her, his small hands never leaving her side. "Talk to her," Walter called through the rear window as they drove. "Let her know she's not alone." Noah obliged, keeping up a steady stream of chatter about everything from his favorite cartoons to the breakfast they'd share once Daisy felt better. And incredibly, the dog seemed to respond, her ears perking slightly whenever Noah's voice reached her. Valley Animal Hospital was a modern building on the outskirts of town, all glass and steel that looked more like a human medical facility than a traditional vet clinic. Dr. Rivera met them at the entrance, a petite woman in her 40s with kind eyes and hands that moved with practiced efficiency. "Let's get her inside," she said without preamble, directing them to an examination room equipped with a hydraulic table. "How long has she been in this condition?" "We found her yesterday evening," Walter explained, as they carefully lifted Daisy onto the table. "She was barely conscious then, and she's gotten worse overnight." Dr. Rivera began her examination immediately, her fingers probing gently while her eyes noted every detail. Noah stood pressed against Walter's side, watching intently as the veterinarian worked. "Severe malnutrition," Dr. Rivera murmured, more to herself than to them. "Dehydration, possible infection." She paused, her hands freezing over a section of Daisy's abdomen. "That's interesting." "What is it?" Walter asked, noting the change in her expression. Dr. Rivera's hands moved more deliberately now, pressing gently against Daisy's swollen belly. Her eyes widened slightly, and she reached for a stethoscope. "I need to do an ultrasound," she said, her voice carrying a new urgency. "Can you wait in the lobby for a few minutes?" "Is something wrong?" Noah asked, his voice small and worried. Dr. Rivera smiled reassuringly. "I just need to check something. She's going to be fine, I promise." But Walter caught the look in her eyes, surprise mixed with concern, and knew there was more to the story. 20 minutes later, Dr. Rivera called them back into the room. Daisy was lying on her side, an IV line running into her front leg, looking slightly more alert than before. "First, the good news," Dr. Rivera began. "She's going to recover. Malnutrition, dehydration, and a mild skin infection, all treatable with proper care and medication." "And the other news?" Walter prompted, sensing there was more. Dr. Rivera looked from Walter to Noah, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Your dog is pregnant, about 6 weeks along, I'd estimate. She's carrying at least 4 puppies, possibly more." The room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the ventilation system. Noah's mouth fell open, his eyes growing wide with wonder and excitement. "Puppies?" he whispered. "Daisy's going to have babies?" Dr. Rivera nodded, which explains her condition to some extent. Pregnancy in malnourished animals is always risky. She's been using what little nutrition she had to keep the puppies alive, leaving nothing for herself. Walter sank into a chair, suddenly feeling every one of his 72 years. Taking care of one sick dog was challenging enough. A pregnant dog with puppies on the way was something else entirely. "There's something else," Dr. Rivera continued, lifting Daisy's ear to reveal a small tattoo, a series of numbers barely visible against the dark skin. "This indicates she was part of a breeding or training program at some point. Professional operations usually tattoo their animals for identification." Noah reached over to gently touch the tattoo, his brow furrowed in concentration. "What kind of program?" "Could be military, police, or private security," Dr. Rivera explained. "German Shepherds are commonly used in those fields. The tattoo should help us trace her origins if we contact the right agencies." Walter felt a chill run down his spine. Military or police dogs didn't just end up abandoned in parks. Something had gone very wrong in Daisy's past. "Dr. Rivera," he said carefully, "if she was part of an official program, wouldn't they be looking for her?" The veterinarian's expression grew serious. "That's exactly what concerns me. Dogs like this don't just disappear without someone noticing. Either she escaped from somewhere or—" She paused, glancing at Noah. "Let's just say there could be people looking for her." Noah, oblivious to the adulting implications of the conversation, was focused entirely on the revelation about the puppies. When will they be born? Can I help take care of them? Will they look like Daisy? About 3 more weeks, Dr. Rivera answered, smiling at his enthusiasm despite her concerns. And yes, with proper supervision, you can definitely help, but it's going to be a lot of work. Newborn puppies need attention around the clock. We can do it, Noah declared with absolute certainty. Right, Grandpa? Walter looked at his grandson's eager face, then at Daisy, who was watching them all with those intelligent amber eyes. Despite every practical concern screaming in his head, he found himself nodding. We'll figure it out, he said. But first, let's focus on getting Daisy healthy. Dr. Rivera provided them with a detailed care plan, special food, medications, and instructions for preparing for the birth. She also offered to research the tattoo number, promising to make some discreet inquiries about Daisy's possible origins. One more thing, she said as they prepared to leave. Keep her calm and comfortable. Stress can cause complications during pregnancy, especially in her weakened condition. And if anyone comes asking about her, she paused meaningfully, maybe give me a call first. The ride home was quieter than the morning trip. Daisy seemed more comfortable thanks to the IV fluids and medication, but Walter's mind was racing with new worries. Noah, however, was practically vibrating with excitement. We need to prepare a special place for the puppies, he chattered, and names. We need to think of names for all of them, and toys, and tiny food bowls, and... Slow down there, buddy, Walter chuckled, despite his concerns. Let's take this one day at a time. Back home, they set up a more comfortable area for Daisy in the spare bedroom, Walter's former study that had been gathering dust since Sarah's death. They arranged blankets, water bowls, and the special food Dr. Rivera had prescribed. The work boots found a place in the corner where Daisy could see them, but they wouldn't be in the way. As evening approached, Noah insisted on reading to Daisy from his collection of picture books. Walter watched from the doorway as his grandson sat cross-legged beside the dog, dramatically acting out the story of the 3 little pigs, complete with different voices for each character. And then the wolf huffed and puffed, Noah announced, puffing out his cheeks. But he couldn't blow down the brick house. Daisy's tail thumped weakly against the blanket, the first real sign of happiness they'd seen from her. That night, as Walter tucked Noah into his own bed for the first time since Daisy's arrival, the boy was full of questions. Grandpa, why did someone leave Daisy all alone when she's having babies? Walter struggled for an answer that wouldn't frighten the child. Sometimes people have to make hard choices, Noah. Maybe whoever left her thought she'd be safer that way. But she wasn't safe. She was starving. No, she wasn't safe, Walter agreed. But maybe they didn't know that would happen. Or maybe they had planned to come back and couldn't. Noah was quiet for a moment, processing this. Do you think they're sad? The person who left the boots? Walter thought about the careful way the boots had been placed, the fact that Daisy had stayed with them, despite her desperate condition. I think they're probably very sad, yes. Then we should take extra good care of Daisy, so when they come back, they'll know she was loved. Walter's throat tightened at the simple wisdom of it. That's exactly what we'll do. But as Walter settled into his own bed later that night, listening to the old house creak and settle around them, he couldn't shake Dr. Rivera's warning. Military dogs, tattoos, mysterious abandonment, none of it pointed to a simple case of a lost pet. He thought about the careful way Daisy had positioned herself to guard those boots, the intelligence in her eyes, the disciplined way she accepted their help without the usual wariness of a truly feral animal. This was a dog trained for a purpose, separated from that purpose by circumstances they didn't yet understand, and somewhere out there, someone might be looking for her. Walter pulled his phone from the nightstand and typed a quick text to his old army buddy, Marcus, who had worked with military police for 20 years before retiring. Need to ask you about something. Can you call tomorrow? The response came back immediately, despite the late hour. Everything okay? Call any time. Walter smiled grimly. Marcus never slept well either, another gift from their service days. As he finally drifted off to sleep, Walter's last conscious thought was of Noah's absolute faith that they could handle whatever came next. The boy's optimism was infectious, but Walter had lived long enough to know that sometimes love and good intentions weren't enough to protect the people and animals you cared about. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new questions about Daisy's past and the implications for their future. But tonight, they were safe. A broken family caring for a broken dog, all of them healing together in their own way. What Walter couldn't know was that 50 miles away, in a nondescript office building, someone was indeed looking for Daisy, and that person was not the loving owner who had left those boots behind. The call from Marcus came at 7 the next morning, jarring Walter from uneasy dreams filled with shadowy figures and barking dogs. "Walt, got your message. What's going on?" Marcus's voice carried the no-nonsense tone that had made him an effective military policeman for 2 decades. Walter stepped onto the back porch, not wanting to wake Noah or disturb Daisy. The morning air was crisp and clean after yesterday's rain, but he felt anything but refreshed. "We found a dog yesterday, German Shepherd, pregnant, half-starved. She's got a military tattoo." Walter kept his voice low as he explained the circumstances of Daisy's rescue and Dr. Rivera's concerns. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "You said the tattoo was a series of numbers." "Yeah, the vet wrote them down. Why?" "Walt, listen to me carefully. Don't give those numbers to anyone else until I check something out. There was a situation about 2 years ago, a military canine training facility that got shut down for..." Marcus paused. "Let's just say some people were using government resources for private gain. Dogs went missing during the investigation." Walter felt ice form in his stomach. What kind of private gain? The kind that involves people who pay a lot of money for trained attack dogs and don't ask questions about where they came from, Marcus said grimly. "I'll make some calls. But Walt, be careful. If this dog is connected to that mess, there might be people who want her back for all the wrong reasons." After hanging up, Walter stood on the porch for several minutes, watching the neighborhood wake up around him. Mrs. Chen walking her tiny poodle, the Patterson kids waiting for the school bus, normal people living normal lives, unaware that 48 hours ago his biggest concern had been helping Noah with his homework. Inside, he found Noah already awake, sitting beside Daisy's improvised bed with a bowl of water and the morning's medication. "Dr. Rivera said to give her these with breakfast," Noah announced proudly, showing Walter the pill bottles. "And I already checked her temperature with the special thermometer. It's better than yesterday." Walter marveled at how quickly his grandson had absorbed the veterinary instructions. At 5 years old, Noah was showing more responsibility than some adults Walter knew. "How's our patient feeling this morning?" Walter asked, kneeling beside them. Daisy lifted her head at his voice, her amber eyes clearer than they had been since her rescue. She even managed a weak tail wag when Noah scratched behind her ears. "She ate a little bit of the special food," Noah reported, "and she drank lots of water. I think the babies are making her extra thirsty." Walter examined Daisy more closely. Dr. Rivera's treatment was working. The dog's breathing was easier, her gums had more color, and she seemed more alert overall. But her belly was noticeably more swollen than yesterday, and when Walter gently placed his hand there, he could feel movement. "The puppies are active today," he observed. Noah's eyes lit up. "Really? Can I feel them?" Walter guided his grandson's small hand to the right spot. After a moment, Noah gasped in delight. "They're moving! They're really in there!" He looked up at Walter with wonder. "Do you think they know we're here?" "I think they know their mama is safe now," Walter replied, "and that's the most important thing to them." The peaceful morning was interrupted by the doorbell. Walter's first thought was of Marcus's warning, and he instinctively moved to position himself between the door and the room where Daisy rested. "Stay with Daisy," he told Noah. "I'll see who it is." Through the front window, Walter saw Dr. Rivera standing on his porch, looking unusually tense. He opened the door cautiously. "Dr. Rivera, is everything all right?" "May I come in?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder at the street. "I have some information about Daisy's tattoo, and I'd rather not discuss it outside." Walter led her to the kitchen, far enough from Daisy's room that Noah wouldn't overhear their conversation. "I made some calls yesterday," Dr. Rivera began without preamble. "That tattoo number traces back to a facility called Apex Canine Training. Officially, they were contracted to train dogs for military and law enforcement. Unofficially," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "They were shut down 2 years ago for selling trained dogs to private buyers, people who wanted personal protection animals but couldn't pass the background checks required for legitimate purchases." Walter felt his chest tighten. What happened to the dogs when the facility closed? Most were transferred to other facilities or retired to civilian families, but several went missing during the investigation. The assumption was that the facility's owner, a man named Raymond Cole, stole them before federal agents could seize all the assets. And you think Daisy was one of the missing dogs? Dr. Rivera nodded grimly. The timeline fits. Her condition suggests she's been living rough for months, possibly longer. And there's something else. She pulled out her phone, showing Walter a grainy photograph. This was taken during the raid on Apex K9. Does this look familiar? Walter squinted at the image. It showed a man in military fatigue standing beside several German shepherds in a training yard. One of the dogs, partially obscured by shadow, had a distinctive white patch on its chest. That could be Daisy, Walter admitted, but the photo isn't clear enough to be certain. No, but combined with the tattoo and her obvious training background, Dr. Rivera put her phone away. Walter, I think someone abandoned Daisy when she became pregnant. Pregnant dogs are useless for protection work, and caring for them during pregnancy and whelping is expensive. It's possible Cole or one of his associates simply dumped her when she became a liability. Walter thought of the carefully placed boots, the way Daisy had stayed with them, despite her desperate condition. But someone left those work boots with her. Someone cared enough to give her something to guard. Maybe, or maybe they were just another piece of discarded equipment. Dr. Rivera's expression softened slightly. I hope I'm wrong about this, Walter. I really do. But if Cole or his people think Daisy might lead authorities back to them, or if they want her puppies for their own purposes. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Walter understood the implications perfectly. What do you recommend we do? Keep her safe, don't publicize her presence here, and if anyone comes asking about her, anyone at all, call me immediately. Dr. Rivera handed him a card with her personal number written on the back. I've reported this to the appropriate authorities, but investigations move slowly. For now, you're Daisy's best protection. After Dr. Rivera left, Walter sat in his kitchen for several minutes, staring at the business card and wrestling with the weight of responsibility that had suddenly settled on his shoulders. He'd thought they were rescuing a stray dog. Instead, they had apparently inherited someone else's dangerous secrets. The sound of Noah's laughter from the bedroom drew him back to the present. Whatever complications lay ahead, they had a job to do right now, caring for Daisy and preparing for the arrival of her puppies. He found Noah reading aloud from Charlotte's Web, his voice rising and falling dramatically with the dialogue. Daisy was watching him intently, her head resting on her paws but her ears tracking every word. She likes stories, Noah announced when he noticed Walter in the doorway. Watch this. He turned to a page near the beginning and read in an excited voice. The pig was completely happy. Daisy's tail thumped against the blanket. Noah flipped ahead several pages and read in a sad, quiet voice. Charlotte was gone. Daisy's ears drooped slightly, and she made a soft whining sound. See, she understands the feelings in the words, Noah said proudly. She's really smart, isn't she? Walter nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. A dog that responded to emotional cues in literature was definitely professionally trained. The question was what she'd been trained to do, and whether those skills might be needed again. The rest of the day passed quietly. Walter made several trips to the pet store, stocking up on supplies for the anticipated puppies. Noah appointed himself Daisy's official caretaker, monitoring her food and water intake with the seriousness of a seasoned veterinarian. The dog seemed content to let the boy fuss over her, even allowing him to brush the tangles from her coat. As evening approached, Walter noticed Daisy becoming restless. She would stand, walk in a small circle, then lie down again, only to repeat the process a few minutes later. Is she okay? Noah asked, noting the change in behavior. I think she might be getting ready to have her babies, Walter replied, though he wasn't entirely certain. His experience with birthing animals was limited to helping a neighbor's cat years ago. Around 10 o'clock, as Walter was getting Noah ready for bed, Daisy's behavior became more pronounced. She began panting heavily, and when Walter examined her, he could see her abdomen contracting rhythmically. Call Dr. Rivera, he told himself, reaching for his phone. But before he could dial, Daisy let out a low whine and began straining visibly. Grandpa, what's happening? Noah asked, his voice tight with worry. The babies are coming, Walter said, trying to keep his voice calm despite his own rising panic. We need to help her. Walter quickly called Dr. Rivera, who answered on the second ring despite the late hour. The labor has started, Walter reported. She's been restless all evening, and now she's actively pushing. How long has she been straining? Dr. Rivera asked, and Walter could hear her moving around, presumably gathering supplies. About 10 minutes. That's normal for a first-time mother. I'll be there in 20 minutes, but you might need to assist before I arrive. Do you have clean towels and warm water?" While Walter gathered supplies, Noah stationed himself near Daisy's head, speaking to her in soothing tones. "It's okay, Daisy. You're going to be a good mama. We're here to help you." The first puppy arrived 15 minutes later, while Walter was still on the phone with Dr. Rivera, getting last-minute instructions. It was tiny, dark, and alarmingly still. "It's not moving," Walter said, his voice tight with concern. "That's normal," Dr. Rivera assured him. "The mother should clean it and stimulate breathing. If she doesn't within a minute or two, you'll need to do it yourself." But Daisy, weakened by her ordeal and confused by the unfamiliar surroundings, seemed uncertain about what to do. She sniffed at the puppy but didn't begin the instinctive cleaning process. "Grandpa," Noah whispered urgently, "why isn't the baby crying?" Walter acted on instinct and training from his Army first aid courses. He gently picked up the puppy, cleaning its nose and mouth with a soft cloth, then rubbing its tiny body to stimulate circulation. Nothing happened. "Come on, little one," Walter murmured, continuing the gentle massage. "Your mama needs you to be strong." Noah moved closer, his small hand reaching out to touch the puppy's head. "Please wake up," he whispered. "Please be okay." And then, miraculous and sudden, the puppy took a shuddering breath and let out a tiny, mewling cry. Daisy's ears perked up at the sound, and her maternal instincts finally kicked in. She began licking the puppy enthusiastically, and within moments the tiny creature was nursing contentedly. "One down," Walter said, relief flooding through him. But his relief was short-lived as Daisy began straining again. The second puppy came more quickly, but was even smaller than the first. This time, Daisy immediately began cleaning and caring for it, her confidence growing with experience. The third puppy arrived just as Dr. Rivera pulled into the driveway. It was larger than its siblings and began crying immediately, a good sign, according to the veterinarian. "How are we doing?" Dr. Rivera asked as she entered the room, medical bag in hand. "3 so far," Walter reported. "All seem to be breathing and nursing." Dr. Rivera quickly examined Daisy and the puppies, nodding approvingly. "She's doing well. Sometimes first-time mothers need a little encouragement to get started, but she's figuring it out." The fourth puppy was born 20 minutes later, followed quickly by a fifth, but the fifth puppy was significantly smaller than the others and showed no signs of life despite everyone's efforts to revive it. "Sometimes this happens," Dr. Rivera said gently, as she confirmed what they all already knew. The mother's malnutrition during pregnancy, not all the puppies had equal access to nutrients. Noah stared at the still form, his eyes filling with tears. "We couldn't save it?" "You saved 4 out of 5, Dr. Rivera told him, and that's wonderful. Many litters this size would have had more losses, especially given Daisy's condition." But Walter could see the loss weighing heavily on his grandson. Noah had thrown himself into caring for Daisy with the absolute belief that love and determination could overcome anything. The harsh reality of nature was a difficult lesson for a 5-year-old. "What do we name them?" Walter asked, hoping to redirect Noah's attention to the living puppies. Noah wiped his eyes and looked at the 4 tiny creatures nursing against their mother's side. "The biggest one should be Hero," he decided, "because he was brave enough to cry right away. And that one can be Hope, because we hope so hard for them to be okay." He pointed to the smallest surviving puppy, the one Walter had worked hardest to revive. "And those 2 can be Faith and Grace, because that's what Mom used to say we needed when things got hard." Walter felt his throat tighten at the mention of Sarah. Even in his grief over the lost puppy, Noah was channeling his mother's wisdom. As Dr. Rivera packed up her supplies and prepared to leave, she pulled Walter aside. "They'll need constant monitoring for the next few weeks," she warned. "And Walter, I meant what I said earlier about being careful. Word has a way of getting around in small towns. If the wrong people hear about Daisy and her puppies..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Walter understood. 4 healthy German Shepherd puppies, properly trained, would be worth a considerable sum to the kind of people who'd operated Apex Canine. "We'll be careful," Walter promised. As the house finally settled into quiet, with Daisy contentedly nursing her 4 surviving puppies and Noah asleep on his mattress beside them, Walter allowed himself a moment of simple satisfaction. Despite everything, Daisy's mysterious past, the potential dangers lurking in her background, the loss of 1 puppy, they had accomplished something beautiful. 4 new lives had entered the world, and a broken dog had rediscovered her purpose as a mother. Sometimes, Walter reflected, that was enough. Sometimes, the simple act of caring for those who needed it most was the most important thing you could do. But as he finally headed to his own bed, Walter couldn't shake the feeling that their challenges were just beginning. Somewhere out there, people were looking for dogs exactly like Daisy, and now she had 4 vulnerable puppies to protect as well. The Boots still sat in their corner, silent witnesses to a story Walter was only beginning to understand. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new concerns, and new decisions about how far they were willing to go to keep their unusual family safe. But tonight, they were all together, all breathing, all protected by the warm circle of an old man's determination and a little boy's unshakable faith in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. 3 days passed in peaceful routine. Daisy proved to be an attentive mother, rarely leaving her puppies except for quick trips outside. Noah had appointed himself assistant nursery supervisor, checking on the babies every few hours and reporting their progress to Walter with scientific precision. Hero gained 2 ounces since yesterday, Noah announced over breakfast on Tuesday morning, and Hope's eyes are starting to open a little bit. Dr. Rivera said that was normal for day 4. Walter smiled, marveling at how quickly his grandson had absorbed veterinary terminology. You're doing a great job taking care of them, buddy. Daisy's doing most of the work, Noah said seriously. I'm just the helper. It was that afternoon when everything changed. Walter was in the backyard, hanging laundry on the line and enjoying the warm spring air, when he heard the crunch of gravel in the driveway. Visitors were rare at their house, and after Dr. Rivera's warnings, any unexpected company made him nervous. Through the kitchen window, he saw a black SUV parked at the curb, expensive looking, with tinted windows that made it impossible to see inside. A man in a dark suit was walking up their front path, his movements precise and purposeful. Walter quickly stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. Noah, he called softly toward the bedroom, where the boy was reading to Daisy and the puppies. Come here for a minute. The doorbell rang before Noah could respond. 2 sharp, insistent chimes that seemed to echo through the house with unusual weight. Who is it, Grandpa? Noah asked, appearing in the hallway with a picture book still in his hands. I don't know yet. Go stay with Daisy and keep the puppies quiet, okay? This is very important. Something in Walter's tone must have communicated the seriousness of the situation, because Noah nodded solemnly and disappeared back into the bedroom without his usual questions. Walter approached the front door cautiously, noting that the man outside was looking around the neighborhood with the trained awareness of someone accustomed to assessing threats and exits. Can I help you? Walter called through the door without opening it. Mr. Patterson. The voice was smooth, professional, with just a hint of authority that suggested the speaker was used to having doors opened for him. My name is David Cole. I'm looking for a dog that belongs to me. Walter's blood went cold. Cole, Dr. Rivera had mentioned that name. Raymond Cole's son, perhaps? Or brother? I don't know what you're talking about, Walter replied, proud that his voice remained steady. We don't have any dogs here. Mr. Patterson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The man's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath it now. I have reliable information that you recently acquired a German Shepherd, a pregnant female with distinctive markings. That dog was stolen from my family's training facility, and I'd like her back. Walter's mind raced. How had this man found them so quickly? And more importantly, what did he plan to do about it? I'm afraid you're mistaken, Walter said firmly. Now I'd appreciate it if you'd leave my property. There was a long pause. When the man spoke again, his voice had lost all pretense of friendliness. Mr. Patterson, let me be more direct. That dog represents a significant financial investment. Her puppies, if properly trained, could be worth $50,000 or more to the right buyers. I'm prepared to offer you $5,000 to return her, no questions asked. But if you continue to deny having her, things could become complicated. Walter felt anger surge through him, hot and immediate. This man was threatening him in his own home, treating Daisy and her babies like commodities to be bought and sold. Get off my property, Walter said, his voice low and dangerous. Now. Mr. Patterson, you don't understand who you're dealing with. The threat was interrupted by a sound that made Walter's heart skip, the distinctive whine of one of the puppies, audible through the thin walls of the old house. Cole's voice sharpened immediately. That's very interesting, Mr. Patterson. It sounds like you might have puppies in there after all." Walter cursed silently. The man was trained to notice details, to pick up on sounds that others might miss. Of course he'd recognize the cry of a newborn German shepherd. "Last chance," Cole continued. "Open the door, let me verify that you have my property, and we can settle this like civilized people. Otherwise I'll be forced to contact the authorities about the theft of valuable animals." "Contact whoever you want," Walter shot back. "But you're not coming into my house, and you're not taking anything that belongs to this family." Another pause, longer this time. When Cole spoke again, his voice carried a different quality. Cold calculation rather than heated threat. "I see. Well, Mr. Patterson, I hope you understand that this matter isn't closed. I'll be back, and next time I might not come alone." Walter heard footsteps moving away from the door, then the sound of a car door slamming. The SUV's engine started with a powerful rumble, and moments later, it was gone. Walter remained standing by the door for several minutes, his heart pounding and his hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline. When he finally felt steady enough to move, he went to check on Noah and Daisy. He found them in the bedroom, Noah sitting protectively next to Daisy while she nursed the puppies. The dog's ears were pricked forward, and she was staring intently at the window that faced the front of the house. "Was that the bad man?" Noah asked quietly. Walter was startled by the question. "What makes you think he was bad?" "Daisy knew," Noah said simply. "Look at her." Walter examined Daisy more closely. Her body was tense, ready to spring into action despite her recent labor. Her lips were slightly pulled back, revealing the edges of teeth that could do serious damage if necessary. This was not the weak, broken animal they had rescued. This was a trained protection dog responding to a perceived threat. "She heard his voice and got scared," Noah continued. "But not scared for herself, scared for us, and for her babies." Walter felt a chill run down his spine. If Daisy had recognized something threatening in Cole's voice, it suggested their visitor was exactly who Dr. Rivera had warned them about. "What did he want?" Noah asked. Walter struggled with how much to tell a 5-year-old. "He thinks Daisy belongs to him, but he's wrong." "How do you know he's wrong?" "Because nobody who really cared about Daisy would have left her alone and hungry in the park," Walter said firmly. "And nobody who loved her would want to take her away from her babies when they're so little." Noah nodded, accepting this logic with the straightforward reasoning of childhood. "So, we're not giving her back?" "No," Walter said, surprised by the certainty in his own voice. "We're not giving her back." That evening, Walter called Dr. Rivera and explained what had happened. Her response was immediate and alarmed. "David Cole," she repeated. "I should have expected this. He's Raymond Cole's nephew, and he's been trying to restart the family business under a different name. Walter, this is serious. If he knows where you live, you're not safe. What do you suggest we do? Document everything, record any future contact with him, and call the police immediately if he comes back." Dr. Rivera paused. "Walter, I hate to say this, but you might want to consider relocating Daisy and the puppies somewhere safer until this gets resolved." Walter looked toward the bedroom, where Noah was singing softly to the puppies, his young voice carrying a lullaby Sarah used to sing. The thought of uprooting the boy again, of running from their home because of someone else's greed, made him sick. "This is our home," he said quietly. "I'm not running." "Then be very, very careful. David Cole isn't the kind of man who gives up easily." The next day passed without incident, but Walter couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every car that drove slowly past the house, every unfamiliar face in the neighborhood, set his nerves on edge. He found himself checking the locks repeatedly and positioning himself where he could see both the front and back entrances. Noah, with the resilience of childhood, seemed less affected by the previous day's events. He continued his devoted care of Daisy and the puppies, chattering cheerfully about their growth and development. "Hero's getting really fat," Noah announced proudly, "and Faith is the prettiest. She has a little white star on her forehead just like Daisy." But Walter noticed that Daisy herself remained hypervigilant. She no longer relaxed completely, even when nursing. Her ears constantly swiveled toward any sound from outside, and she'd positioned herself so she could see the bedroom door at all times. It was just after midnight on Thursday when Walter was jolted awake by the sound of glass breaking. He grabbed the baseball bat he'd started keeping beside his bed and moved quickly through the dark house toward the source of the sound. In the kitchen, moonlight streaming through the window revealed shattered glass on the floor and a baseball-sized rock that had clearly been thrown from outside. Wrapped around the rock was a piece of paper secured with rubber bands. With shaking hands, Walter unwrapped the message. In neat block letters, someone had written, "Last warning, the dog and puppies, or your safety, your choice." "Grandpa," Noah's voice came from behind him, small and scared. "What was that noise?" Walter quickly crumpled the note and shoved it in his pocket, then turned to find Noah standing in the hallway in his pajamas, eyes wide with fear. "Just a window, buddy. Probably a bird flew into it." Walter hated lying to the child, but the truth would only frighten him more. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" Noah asked. "I keep hearing noises." Walter's heart broke a little at the request. Noah had been sleeping in his own bed consistently since Daisy's arrival, gaining confidence and independence. Now fear was driving him backward, seeking the safety of adult protection. "Of course you can," Walter said, scooping up his grandson. "How about we both go check on Daisy and the puppies first?" In the bedroom, they found Daisy standing alert beside her babies, every muscle in her body coiled with tension. When she saw Walter and Noah, she relaxed slightly but didn't lie down. "She knows something's wrong," Noah whispered. "Animals can sense these things, can't they?" Walter nodded, no longer surprised by his grandson's perceptiveness. "Yes, they can. And Daisy's job was to protect people, so she's very good at sensing danger." "Is she protecting us now?" Walter looked at the dog, at her intelligent eyes, her powerful frame, the way she'd positioned herself between her puppies and the door. "Yes," he said. "I think she is." They settled into Walter's bed, Noah curled against his grandfather's side, while they listened to the sounds of the old house settling around them. But sleep was elusive for Walter. Every creak, every whisper of wind through the trees made him wonder if Cole was out there, planning his next move. Around 3 in the morning, Walter heard it, the soft sound of footsteps on gravel. Someone was walking around the house, testing windows and doors. Walter eased out of bed, careful not to wake Noah, and grabbed his bat. Moving to the bedroom window, he peered through a gap in the curtains. A figure in dark clothing was moving along the side of the house, checking each window systematically. When the person reached the kitchen window, the one with the broken glass, they paused, examining their handiwork. Walter's anger flared. This was his home, his sanctuary with Noah, the place where they were supposed to feel safe, and this man was treating it like his personal hunting ground. Making a quick decision, Walter moved to the back door and unlocked it quietly. He stepped outside, bat in hand, and called out into the darkness. "I know you're there, Cole. This is private property, and you're trespassing." The figure froze, then slowly turned toward Walter's voice. In the dim light from the street lamp, Walter could make out the same man who had come to his door. David Cole, no longer bothering with suits and pretense. "Mr. Patterson," Cole said calmly, as if being caught prowling around someone's house at 3 in the morning was perfectly normal. "I was hoping we could continue our conversation from yesterday." "At 3 in the morning? By breaking my windows and threatening my family?" Cole's posture shifted slightly, and Walter caught the glint of something metallic in his hand. "I think you misunderstand the gravity of your situation. That dog and her puppies represent stolen property. I'm simply reclaiming what belongs to me." "You're wrong about that," Walter said, gripping the bat tighter. "And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." Cole laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "The police? Mr. Patterson, do you really think they're going to side with an old man harboring stolen animals over a legitimate businessman trying to recover his property?" "I think they'll side with whoever's telling the truth," Walter replied. "And the truth is that you abandoned a sick, pregnant dog in a public park and left her to die." For the first time, Cole's composure cracked slightly. "I never abandoned any dog." "Then how do you explain the work boots? How do you explain why she was guarding them like they belonged to someone she loved?" Cole was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a different tone, something almost like regret. "Those boots, they belonged to one of my trainers, a man who got too attached to the animals and started questioning our business practices. He had to be dismissed." The implications of Cole's words hit Walter like a physical blow. Someone had cared about Daisy enough to leave her with a memento of their relationship, and that person was gone, dismissed in a way that suggested permanence. "What did you do to him?" Walter asked quietly. "That's not your concern," Cole replied, his cold mask sliding back into place. "What should concern you is that I'm running out of patience." One way or another, I'm leaving here with that dog and her puppies." Walter raised the bat slightly. "No, you're not." The two men stared at each other across the darkened yard, the weight of unspoken threats hanging heavy between them. Walter could feel his heart pounding, but underneath the fear was something stronger, a determination he hadn't felt since his army days. This man would not enter his house. This man would not harm his family. And this man would not take Daisy and her babies. The standoff was broken by a new sound, a low, rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Both men turned toward the house, where a large shadow had appeared in the back doorway. Daisy stood there, her amber eyes reflecting the streetlight like twin flames. She'd left her puppies, something she hadn't done since their birth, and positioned herself in support of Walter. Her lips were pulled back in a snarl that revealed teeth capable of ending any fight before it started. Cole took an involuntary step backward. "Control your dog, Patterson." "She's not my dog," Walter said, understanding flooding through him. "She's her own dog, and she's made her choice about who she trusts." For a moment, the three of them formed a tableau in the darkness. An old man with a baseball bat, a trained killer with unknown weapons, and a mother dog protecting her chosen family. Then Daisy took a step forward, and David Cole decided he'd tested fate enough for one night. "This isn't over," he said, backing toward the front of the house. "You can't watch them 24 hours a day. And when you slip up, when you make one mistake, I'll be there." Walter waited until he heard the SUV drive away before lowering the bat. His hands were shaking now, but whether from fear or rage, he couldn't tell. Daisy approached him cautiously, pressing her head against his leg in a gesture of solidarity. Together they stood in the quiet backyard, both understanding that their peaceful interlude was over. The war for their family had officially begun. Walter didn't sleep for the rest of that night. He sat in his armchair with the baseball bat across his knees, watching the windows and listening for any sound that didn't belong. Daisy had returned to her puppies, but positioned herself where she could see both her babies and the approaches to the house. Even in the darkness, Walter could see the glint of her watchful eyes. When dawn finally broke, Walter knew they couldn't continue this way. Living in fear, waiting for the next attack, was no life for Noah, or for any of them. If Cole wanted a fight, Walter would give him one, but it would be on Walter's terms, not in the shadows. His first call was to Marcus, who answered on the second ring despite the early hour. "Walt? What's wrong?" Walter explained the previous night's events, including Cole's veiled threats about the dismissed trainer. Marcus listened without interruption, his breathing growing heavier as the story unfolded. "Son of a bitch," Marcus finally said. "Walt, you need to get out of there. Take the boy and the dog and disappear until we can sort this out officially." "No," Walter said firmly. "I'm not running, and I'm not letting him intimidate us into giving up Daisy and her babies." "Then what are you planning to do?" Walter had been thinking about that all night. "I'm going public. If Cole wants to operate in the shadows, threatening old men and stealing dogs, then let's drag him into the light. Sometimes the best defense is making sure everyone's watching." His second call was to Jennifer Martinez, a reporter from the local newspaper who'd covered Sarah's volunteer work at the animal shelter. Jennifer had always been fair in her reporting, and more importantly, she understood the difference between a human interest story and something that could put people in danger. "Mr. Patterson, it's been a while. How can I help you?" Walter took a deep breath. "Jennifer, I have a story for you, but I need your word that you'll handle it carefully. There are people who could get hurt if this isn't done right." 2 hours later, Jennifer arrived with a photographer, a serious young woman named Lisa who immediately understood the sensitivity of the situation. They found Walter and Noah in the backyard, where the puppies were experiencing their first taste of fresh air under Daisy's watchful supervision. "They're beautiful," Jennifer said softly, kneeling a respectful distance from the family. "And the mother looks remarkably healthy for a rescue." "That's thanks to my grandson," Walter said, placing his hand on Noah's shoulder. "He refused to give up on her." As they spoke, Walter carefully shared Daisy's story, the rescue from the park, the discovery of her pregnancy, the caring for the puppies. He mentioned the military tattoo and the connection to Apex K9, but was deliberately vague about the threats from Cole. Jennifer was experienced enough to read between the lines. "You mentioned that people might be looking for her," Jennifer said carefully. "Are you concerned about her safety?" "I'm concerned about all of our safety," Walter replied. "There are people who see Daisy and her puppies as valuable property, rather than living beings who deserve love and protection. The resulting article, which appeared online that afternoon and in print the next morning, was everything Walter had hoped for. Jennifer had crafted a heartwarming story about a 5-year-old boy who refused to abandon a sick dog, combined with enough details about the dog's professional background to make clear that this wasn't a simple case of finders keepers. The headline read, "Local Boy's Compassion Saves Military Dog and Her Puppies," and it was accompanied by Lisa's photograph of Noah reading to the puppies while Daisy watched with obvious contentment. Within hours, the story had been picked up by regional news outlets. By evening, it was trending on social media. Walter's phone rang constantly with calls from reporters, animal welfare organizations, and people offering support. But the call that mattered most came from Detective Sarah Chen with the County Sheriff's Department. "Mr. Patterson, I saw the article about your dog. I think we need to talk." Detective Chen arrived that evening with a partner, Detective Rodriguez, and a folder full of documents. They examined Daisy's tattoo, took photographs, and asked detailed questions about Cole's visits. "We've been investigating the remnants of the Apex K9 operation for over a year," Detective Chen explained. "David Cole has been very careful to stay just inside the legal boundaries, but we suspect he's been trying to recover dogs from the original facility to restart his uncle's business." "What about the trainer whose boots were left with Daisy?" Walter asked. Detective Chen and her partner exchanged glances. "Michael Santos. He was a whistleblower who provided us with evidence about the illegal activities at Apex K9. He disappeared 6 months ago, shortly after agreeing to testify against Raymond Cole." Walter felt the blood drain from his face. "Disappeared?" "We haven't been able to locate him. His apartment was cleared out, his phone was disconnected, and his car was found abandoned near the Mexican border. We suspect he either fled the country or—" She didn't finish the sentence. Noah, who had been playing quietly with the puppies during the adult conversation, looked up with the uncanny perception he'd shown throughout this ordeal. "The man in the boots loved Daisy," he said simply. "That's why she waited for him. That's why she kept his shoes safe." Detective Chen knelt down to Noah's level. "You're a very smart boy. And you're absolutely right. Michael loved all the dogs at that facility. That's why he risked everything to try to save them." Over the next few days, the media attention intensified. The story of Noah and Daisy had captured hearts across the country, and donations poured in to help with veterinary bills and puppy supplies. More importantly, the publicity made it impossible for Cole to operate in the shadows. Walter received a call on Thursday morning from a woman who identified herself as Maria Santos. "Mr. Patterson, I saw the article about the dog with my husband's boots. Michael Santos was my husband." Walter's heart raced. "Was?" "He's been missing for 6 months. The police think—" Her voice broke. "But when I saw that picture of the dog guarding his boots, I knew he'd found a way to take care of her, even after—" "Would you like to meet her?" Walter asked gently. "And Noah, he's the boy who saved her." Maria Santos arrived the next afternoon, a small woman in her 40s with Michael's same gentle eyes. When she saw Daisy, she burst into tears. "Esperanza," she whispered, using the Spanish name Michael had given the dog. "My husband called her Hope, but her real name was Esperanza." Daisy's reaction was immediate and profound. She approached Maria cautiously, then pressed her head against the woman's hands, making soft whining sounds of recognition and grief. "He talked about her every day," Maria said, stroking Daisy's head. "He said she was the smartest, most loyal dog he'd ever trained. When the facility was shut down, he was devastated that he couldn't save them all." "What happened to him?" Walter asked softly. Maria's face hardened. "David Cole happened. Michael was going to testify about the illegal dog fighting, the unregistered sales to criminals, the abuse of animals that couldn't perform. The night before his court appearance, he got a phone call. He told me he had to go make sure Esperanza was safe, that he'd hidden her somewhere, but needed to move her again." "And he never came back?" "I found his boots by our front door the next morning, along with a note saying he had gone into hiding until the trial was over, but Michael would never leave his boots behind. They were his lucky boots, from his army days. Leaving them meant—" She couldn't finish. Noah, who had been listening with the solemn attention he gave to important adult conversations, approached Maria shyly. "He left them for Daisy to remember him," Noah said. "She knew he wasn't coming back, but she kept them safe anyway." Maria smiled through her tears. "You must be Noah. Your grandfather told me you saved her life. We all saved each other, Noah replied, with the simple wisdom that had guided him throughout this journey. That evening, Walter called a family meeting in the living room. Daisy lay with her puppies, now 2 weeks old, and beginning to show distinct personalities. Hero was indeed the largest and most adventurous, frequently attempting to explore beyond the confines of their nest. Hope remained the smallest, but had proven to be the most vocal, announcing his opinions about everything from feeding time to room temperature. Faith was gentle and cuddly, while Grace showed signs of her mother's intelligence and alertness. We need to make some decisions, Walter began. The publicity has been good for keeping Cole away, but it's also attracted a lot of attention. People want to adopt the puppies, and there are organizations that can provide professional homes for Daisy. Noah's face crumpled. You want to give them away? I want what's best for them, Walter said carefully, and what's safest for our family. But we are their family now, Noah protested. Daisy chose us. She could have gone with Maria, but she came back to us. It was true. When Maria had offered to take Daisy home with her, the dog had politely but firmly declined, returning to her place beside Noah and the puppies she'd birthed in their house. Some of the puppies should go to good homes, Walter said, but maybe not all of them. Over the next week, they carefully vetted potential adopters. Hero went to a retired police officer who specialized in training service dogs for veterans. Faith was adopted by a family with young children who promised to send regular updates and photos. Grace found a home with an elderly woman whose previous German Shepherd had recently passed away. But hope remained. The smallest puppy, the one Walter had worked hardest to save, had claimed Noah as surely as Noah had claimed him, and Daisy had made her choice clear. This house, this family, was where she belonged. The legal resolution came faster than expected. Detective Chen called on a Tuesday morning with news that David Cole had been arrested, trying to cross the border into Canada with a vehicle full of stolen dogs from facilities across 3 states. It turns out your story was the key, she explained. Once people started paying attention to his activities, other victims came forward. He's going away for a long time. And Daisy? She's yours, if you want her. Maria Santos has signed papers transferring any claim she might have had, and the state has cleared her for civilian adoption. That evening, Walter stood in the backyard watching Noah play with Hope, while Daisy supervised from her favorite spot in the shade. The work boots sat nearby, no longer symbols of loss and abandonment, but reminders of love that transcended even death. Maria visited regularly, sharing stories about Michael and helping to train Hope in basic commands. She'd found peace in knowing that her husband's last act had been to ensure Daisy's safety, and that his sacrifice had led to this unexpected family. Mom would have loved this, Noah said one evening, as they watched Daisy teaching Hope to fetch. She always said animals could teach us about loyalty and courage. Walter nodded, his throat tight with emotion. She would have been proud of you, buddy. You showed both of those things when you insisted on helping Daisy. Do you think Mr. Michael can see us from heaven? Noah asked. Do you think he knows Daisy is happy? Walter looked at the contentment on Daisy's face, the way she'd adapted to domestic life while never losing her protective instincts, the obvious bond between her and Noah. I think he knows, Walter said, and I think he's grateful. As the sun set behind the old oak tree that had sheltered their house for decades, Walter reflected on how much their lives had changed since that rainy Thursday afternoon. They had started as a broken family, an old man struggling to raise his grandson, a boy grieving his mother's loss. They'd thought they were rescuing an abandoned dog. Instead, they'd discovered that sometimes the things that seem broken are actually just waiting for the right moment to reveal their strength. Sometimes love comes in unexpected packages, a 5-year-old's stubborn compassion, a military dog's fierce loyalty, a stranger's willingness to sacrifice everything for those who couldn't protect themselves. Daisy had never worn boots, but as Noah had written on the small memorial they had placed beneath the oak tree, she didn't wear boots, but she filled them. The inscription was barely visible in the gathering darkness, but its truth illuminated everything around it. Sometimes the greatest honor you can give someone is to continue their work of protecting and loving those who need it most. And in the warm glow of the porch light, with Noah's laughter echoing across the yard and Daisy's watchful presence keeping them all safe, Walter knew that Michael Santos's legacy would live on in every act of kindness, every moment of courage, and every choice to help rather than walk away. The story that had begun with a child's notice of a sleeping dog had become something much larger, a testament to the power of love to transform loss into hope and strangers into family. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the extraordinary courage hidden in ordinary moments. Because sometimes, the most important thing we can do is simply refuse to walk away when someone needs help. Even if that someone has 4 legs and a broken heart, and all they have to offer in return is their fierce, unwavering loyalty.